Season 9. We want to start off as we always do with a review from one of you, which, side note, we have a little bit of a pause on the reviews.
I know.
And so we need y'all to help us out and to give us some new reviews. We want to hear from you. I know that you can for sure do it on Apple. I know we get comments from you guys all the time like, we can't do anything on Spotify.
It sends DMs on Spotify though.
Yeah, so we want to hear from you. So please, 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 let us hear from you. Take time to write a review. That's amazing. This one is from Mercedes. It says, most amazing, funny, and authentic. It says, I absolutely love listening to Brad and Lisa. I am so incredibly thankful for their story and for their mission to help heal marriages. I love how funny, real, and comfortable they are with each other. You can really hear the love they have for one another in the show. It's truly so genuine because they're so strong in their individual walks with God. My husband and I have been married for almost 9 years and have 3 kids. We suffered from infidelity. God saved not only us as a couple, but our family as a whole by restoring our marriage. I look forward to every new episode. Brad and Lisa have inspired me in so many ways, not only to be a better wife, but how to also be the best example for our kids and to trust in God with all of my heart. Learning the importance of nurturing my relationship with God has helped me to heal immensely. Thank you both so much for all that you do.
Nice.
That is literally the heartbeat of why we do this. And so thank you so much, Mercedes, for sending that review. It really means the world to us. So we are, for the first time, solo while recording on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
You're like wondering where we're going.
Yeah,
I'm saying we're alone in the studio for the first time. So we're attempting to do all of the things that our amazing friend has been doing for us. And so I would say that we're starting off this episode a little more stressed than usual.
No, I'm fine.
You're fine?
Yeah.
Taking a deep breath. We're going forward.
Yeah, I'm totally fine.
I'm telling you, the visual stuff with YouTube is definitely like, it's stressful.
Yeah.
I'm definitely feel very out of my depth in trying to get everything set up, everything ready.
On the post end.
Yeah, just in general. I just think like setting up when it's just for, basically ourselves just to do little shorts on Instagram, not a big deal, but this seems much more, I don't know, real.
I don't know. I just feel like we already have the video, so you just cut it and do a short.
This is how Brad and I's brain works entirely differently.
We have everything. Like, that's how I feel about it.
So our topic for today is actually stemming from our group that we're in every single week. Yeah. We, for those of you who wonder, like, well, what do Brad and Lisa do for their own marriage? We constantly are working and striving towards, having couples surround us and pour into us, and also to just have individuals around us that can be a part of our marriage. So we have a weekly marriage group that we go to as well. We do not lead it. We attend it, which is nice.
It is nice. I mean, we led this last week.
Well, yes. But in general, we don't typically lead it.
Yeah.
We're able to just kind of go and be a part of it. And I think that's really important. So we're going through a book right now called 5 Traits of a Healthy Family by Gary Chapman.
Yeah.
And there were some really interesting things that were in the book. We're going to dive into that a little bit more, I think, in some other episodes. But there was also a podcast that he was on that we listened to as a homework assignment for this group. And I thought it was so good. I will link it below. But there was 3 questions that Gary Chapman, which if you're not familiar with him, he's the one who developed the 5 love languages. Yeah. I feel like most people are familiar.
I just don't think that, I mean, I would hope so, but maybe because it doesn't have his name on all the free quizzes.
That's true.
I don't know.
So if you haven't taken a 5 love languages quiz, they're free. Like, just go and do that, because I think it's encouraging to know how your spouse both loves and receives love. I think that's really important. But he's written, I think, like 30 some books or something like that. So this is one of them. But he just talked about these 3 questions that transformed his marriage. And I thought they were so powerful that I wanted us to have the discussion, because I think, we just did a speaking event this past week, right? Is this past week?
No.
It was a week ago.
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah. It was a week ago.
Yeah. And,
as we were kind of going through our message and discussing, one of the things that, just came up in our message was just this idea of how much it grieves us when we do have a couple that's across from us that we get a chance to work with, and there's either one or both of them that is either unwilling and or you know, I say mainly it's just unwilling to change.
Yeah.
So there's one person who's really wanting to work on the marriage, one person who's wanting to do all the things, and there's the other person who's just kind of like unrepentant, unwilling, just like kind of there to check the boxes.
Yeah.
And it just like grieves our heart because we know the capacity for any couple to have a transformed marriage is there. And I think like that's one of the hardest things I think for me being in marriage ministry is that like looking at a couple, seeing things could be different,
Hmm.
things could change. And yet, two people or one person, they're just stuck
Yeah.
and they choose to stay that way. And I don't know, it's heartbreaking for me.
Yeah.
Is that all you got today?
Are you not going to do the questions?
Yes. Well, I was just doing a whole little thing, like leading
And it
up
was
to
great.
why.
I didn't know if I didn't want to jump in and ruin it.
You're not ruining it. We're conversating.
Mm.
This is part of our process as we
Yeah. I
conversate.
mean, it's very annoying, um, to be honest.
Just
The,
straight to annoyance.
it is. I mean, you can tell within 5 minutes if someone really wants to be there, or if they want, if they were dragged there, or if they're even interested in changing or in pursue, like
Yeah.
all those things. You can tell right away. And it's not like we force people to come talk to us. Like, I, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm fine with.
Yeah, we don't because our heart is to help
Uh,
marriages and also to bring hope to marriages. And so for a lot of people, I think when they reach out to us, it's this idea like I think I'll be totally honest with you. I think this is what happens with a lot of couples that reach out to us is there's a lot of wives. I would say definitely more husbands that we're dealing with that are the betrayer,
yeah.
typically. And so I think that there's just wives and they're just like, if I can just get Brad to talk to my husband,
Mm.
he'll get it. And for a lot of guys, it's true, right? Like they get a chance to be able to talk with you, and there's that understanding that someone has walked this road before
Yeah.
and is on the other side, and they do need to hear it and they need to see it. But then you get those other guys who are just like, yep, I guess this is supposed to be the magic pill,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, no, there's a lot of work. Like there's so much work that you need to do. But our hope is always that if you have two people who are willing to do the work and who are individually going after their pursuit of Christ, we see transformation all the time.
Yeah.
And like
No.
that's the most joyful part
Mhm.
of our marriage ministry. But so I think these three questions are things that are so good no matter where you are in your marriage, no matter if you think you have a good marriage or even if you are a marriage that is really struggling, these three questions can help you. So the three questions are, what can I do to help you? Which sounds so
Yeah.
simple and basic, but this is not a question I think that's asked very often in marriages. What can I do to help you? How can I make your life easier? How can I be a better wife or a better husband?
Yeah. It's good.
So what he talked about in this episode was how he had really fallen out of the feelings of love with his wife.
Mhm.
And he used these questions because he realized that what Jesus called him to do was to serve his wife selflessly. And so he began to start realizing like I am not doing that. I'm in this marriage for what can you do for me? How can you fulfill me? And he realized that somebody had to start doing something.
Yeah.
And ultimately, if you're a man listening to this, that should be you. But in reality, a lot of times it is, that isn't being done correctly in the home. So if a husband's not willing to do it, we want a wife to go ahead and start doing it, to
Yeah.
start asking those
Well, I
questions.
mean, it's both though.
Yeah,
I mean,
eventually
you're,
they both started asking each other
yeah.
these questions, but it has to start with someone.
Oh, no, I understand that. You just made it sound like this is only a man's
No, it should
thing.
not be a one-sided thing. I'm saying if someone needs to start it, ideally it's the
Yeah.
man. Like ideally as the leader of the home, like if a man starts living this out, um, the goal and hope would be that the wife
Mhm.
would reciprocate and start actually also
Yeah.
asking those questions. The goal is for either one of them. Like if one spouse is asking and doing these things, the goal is that both of you guys get to that
Yeah.
place where it's like, the race to the end of the line, right? Like
Hmm.
we need to start serving each other no matter what. So I know for me, I'm an acts of service girl, love language,
Yeah.
right? So when you ask me questions like, what can I do to help you? Or how can I make your life easier? Like, I'm always going to have like an acts of service
Yeah.
thing. Brad's like, that's why I don't want to ask you.
But I don't just sit around and do nothing.
No. He's like, do I want the honey-do list to come out?
I'm always doing something. Um, no, just while you're saying these, I was thinking, so they were a Christian couple
Yeah.
prior to this, right? And
As far as I know, yeah.
I think that's what's so interesting to me is that there's so many people that are Christians, legitimate Christians. They're not
Yeah.
like these progressive Christians that are dancing around everywhere. They're legitimate,
Dancing around her.
yeah, thinking that it's all good, everything's about love, it's
I
fine.
just have this
Yeah.
idea now of like this dancing person. Like, I'm a progressive Christian. Like, I'm
I mean,
dancing.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
With no, like, yeah. Anyway,
I always like to find
it's,
out the imagery in Brad's head of what
yeah.
when he thinks of certain
But
things.
no, getting back to it, it's just interesting to me how many Christians deal with this. And I think it's not like if you're not a Christian, you deal with this. It's universal
Yeah.
in marriages, but I just think it's interesting to me if you're a Christian, and you're dealing with these things, and it's like this revelation you get of, wow, Jesus wants me to lead my family like he leads, right? Or Jesus wants me to be more like him.
So
Where
don't you think though that okay, so I know, especially when I would have considered myself like a baby Christian or I'm just
hmm
really starting to read the Bible and you see certain principles, but a lot of times I think what happens is we're reading the Bible saying, God, what are you going to do for me? God, what do
yeah,
you have to show me? And in that, it's like we miss like the overarching aspect of like we're just supposed to be getting to know who God is and starting to model how he lives. But we want it to be like, okay, well, I'm reading about these things and we start thinking, well, I wish that my husband would start doing that.
yeah,
Or I wish that my wife would start doing that. And we don't look at it in like a self-reflective way because it's just kind of our nature to be pointing to what others need
yeah.
to do.
No, absolutely. And I don't know. I just found it interesting while you were saying that, where I think that's what's more profound than the three questions are good. They're
Yeah.
very simple,
They're very simple. That's why I think it's
but they're good.
accessible.
But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. It's just, the love. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. It's the love that you should have for someone you're picking as a husband, as a wife, and you're already a Christian. Like, I just feel like there's this, there should already be these things, right? It should already be, you know, service. I
Yeah.
mean, you wouldn't think twice well, maybe you would, to, do something at the church or to do something for someone else.
Yeah.
But then when it comes down to your home, you're like, I'm not really doing this. And I know he talked about that at the beginning of the marriage, he didn't like his wife anymore, or he
Well,
didn't
I
have,
mean, they were at this point a couple years in
yeah,
fairly quickly because he talks
yeah,
about that this perfect concoction of cocktail of emotions that we
hmm
have that allow us to enter into a lifelong covenant
yeah,
with someone. Typically, that's like a 2-year time period
yeah.
before that wears down. Well, they had dated seriously for a couple of years, and so that cocktail had gone down fairly quickly. But
It's interesting. That's interesting to me too. I think it's just because of stuff that's gone around us recently. But this whole, I don't know. I feel when we were first married, I I guess my expectations were just like we want to be married.
mm-hmm.
Like there was no other expectations of you filling this void in my life that I didn't know. I'm trying to fill a void in my life, and it's like, oh, well, you're going to be the void that fills. You're going to give me all my happiness. I guess I didn't. well, here's what I'm honestly saying. I probably wasn't smart enough to even think that deep into it.
Yeah, I don't
I
think
mean,
most people
but
are.
I think that that's what's weird now. Is it like that so many dudes are just so trying to be like into them introspectively into themselves, where it's like, you know what I'm saying? Where, I talked to somebody and it's just like, dude, like just stop thinking. I mean,
Brad's great advice on the
well, no,
podcast
but it's
today.
just like, come on, man. Like, you know, okay, you had a bad childhood. Like, all right, you didn't have great examples. All right, you didn't have these things. But my goodness, like, how long are you going to complain about this and not do anything? And
Yeah.
so, like, those questions, I think they're great. They're absolutely great. I mean, this guy's a lot smarter than I am. He came up with the five love language test.
Yeah.
But I just don't. And then with people like that, male or female, you give them those questions and they're not going to ask it because
Yeah.
they're going to say, well, but they need to ask it first. And then it's like, okay, well, what about your relationship with Christ? Like, are you waiting for him to say something to you, or are you, do like, no, he has to do this first for me before I'm going to do anything. It's a whole skewed view of a relationship, especially your spouse,
Yeah.
right? I think you can have that view maybe with, you know, at your job, with things like, kind of more that contractual view, or I don't even have that. What I do for work, I don't think like that, but it's like, oh, well, if you do this for me, I'll do this for you.
Hmm.
It's just, no, things need to be done. We're going to do them. And if it helps you, great. And, vice versa. I don't understand why all those contractual things are brought into the marriage, as far as like, well, we've heard each other so much, so now I'm not asking those three questions. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care what your love language is. Like, I don't like you anymore. And it's like, well, get out of yourself. Like, do you want the marriage? Then get out of this, like, woe is me, and being like, so like every time I look in the mirror, I hate my life and I don't like my spouse. And, I just get so annoyed with the whining and complaining, because it's like, this is what you want, right? I'd ask, you want your marriage? Yes. You want a better marriage? Yes. All right. So you want all this, but you're just going to be fine and content with sitting right here complaining and not doing anything and not putting in the work, even if it becomes one-sided.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
I think
that's,
that's what it is, though, is people, when you have these conversations, especially when you have that mindset, which here's the reality, most of these things are won and lost in the mind, right? It's like, well, I did do that. I did do that. I tried that.
but how often
Yeah.
and how much and how long? Like,
And
okay,
are you only doing it so that you get what you want? And
well, and I
that's where
think
it
that's what I
gets.
was just going to say. I think as I'm talking about this and thinking about these instances that we've had to deal with, I don't want to say had to deal with. I think it's an
A call.
a call,
Yeah.
right? So I don't want to say we had to deal with, but these things that I've experienced, it all comes down to selfishness.
Hmm.
That's really pride and selfishness. And I think pride equals selfishness, so it's
Right.
all, but it all comes down to pride and selfishness, because it doesn't matter. And you could talk to the person, and say, hey, these three questions, hey, this, hey, that, well, yeah, I'm doing all these things. I'm willing to do these things. I'm willing to, I'm willing to lay down my life for my marriage. I'm willing to, it's like, no, you're not. You're not willing to. You really aren't, because you're willing to do it once or twice, or you're willing to do it for a week, or you're willing to do it for 3 weeks or a month. But once you start really going like, I'm doing all these things and I'm not getting anything,
Hmm.
isn't that the problem? Like, what if, like, what if Jesus was walking the earth and did the same exact thing?
Yeah.
I'm doing all these things and you guys aren't doing anything. Like, I'm done. I'm going to stop doing these things. And we're supposed to be him,
Yeah.
right? Try to be him, we never will, but we're supposed to model after him.
Yeah.
He didn't stop when people weren't doing what he was saying, when he was serving everyone and loving everyone and healing people, like doing all these things. He didn't stop and say, well, when are you guys going to start doing things? I'm going to stop right now because I've been doing these for how long, and you guys are just still doing whatever you want, And it's like, take that to marriage. You can't even ask these three questions if you can't literally look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I willing to lay down my life for my marriage? Part of our talk was surrender,
Mm.
right? And sacrifice. And, and I said it during the talk, and, I'll say it at your church if you guys want us to come talk. But it was true sacrifice. And I'll argue in any sense, as far as what you do for your career, what you do for your kids, what you do for your wife, your husband, wherever. This isn't just marriage only, even what you do for your walk with Christ, like everywhere. True sacrifice is surrendering things, stopping things, and starting things.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't have true sacrifice without those three things. And so if you say in your marriage, well, yeah, I want all these things, but I'm not willing to do one of those S's,
Yeah.
then you're not going to have the marriage that you're dreaming of. Like you might not get divorced,
Yeah.
right?
You might get a roommate for the rest of your
Yeah,
life. That's funsies.
yeah, but you're not going to have the marriage that you really want to have. You're not going to, your spouse is going to have the marriage you're really going to want to have. So it's just this cycle that someone needs to break, but you have to do all those things to break it. And if your spouse isn't doing those things, then, oh, well, like this is my road right now, and I'm going to do this. And I'm not going to do this I'm not waiting for her to do something to me. I'm doing this because this is what God has called me to do.
Yeah.
And I've chose this road, and this is what I'm going to do. And in that, like, why do we give the first challenge in anybody we talk to for the first time? The first challenge we give for that night or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, right? That end of that session is to pray together.
Yeah.
Not silently together, not creepily looking into the eyes together, like whatever you want to do, we don't care, but it's verbal prayer together for one another. It's not, I'm going to pray a family prayer, or no, it's literally, I'm going to pray for Lisa, and then I'm done, and then she's going to pray for me, or whoever starts it. We don't even care about that. But the more you do that, the more you find yourself, like, you're not getting as mad
Right.
at your spouse. Those little things don't bother you anymore. Like the little, just the little things that snap or trigger you or whatever you want to call it, they're not doing it anymore, because now you're seeing your spouse in a different light. Like you're praying for them like you should be, out loud. Like
Yeah.
this is it.
One of the things that he said was like, it's difficult to not love someone who's serving you. I would argue even praying for you.
Mhm.
Like this aspect of when you realize like someone is in it with you, right? Bringing the things that
Yeah.
you both care about before God. And it's not about this magical words, and it's not about your comfort. I mean, I think that is this other aspect, is people don't do things because it's just uncomfortable. That's how you change.
Mhm.
It's through uncomfortable. You have said over and over, be comfortable being uncomfortable. But it's like if you never step into the uncomfortable aspects, then you stay exactly where you
Yeah.
are. And so then you stay in cycles because you stay in a cycle, right? Like you participate in the cycle. And this is not excusing people's bad behavior. This is not saying that your spouse may radically need to change in their life,
Absolutely. But you can't do
but you
that.
can't do it.
No.
And that's
And
like the hard
we
thing.
can't do it.
No.
Like nobody can do that. The only thing that you have true control over, I'll take that back, not true control, because then I'll get people like, well, God's the only one in
Yeah.
control. The only thing that you can control is yourself.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only thing. You can't control your kids. Like if you're a parent, can you control your kids? No. You can guide them, you can spank them, you can do whatever you
Yeah.
want, but
You can give the
ultimately,
parameters, but
yeah.
ultimately,
But really, you can control yourself. You can control emotions. You can control how you view things. You can control a lot. You can't control your spouse. You
yeah.
can't, you can help them. Like, you can guide them. You can do all those things. But ultimately, yeah, if they don't choose to serve you, that sounds horrible. But in the sense of
Yeah,
marriage, right?
reciprocation, right? Where
Yeah.
you're trying to outserve one another.
Yeah. If they don't choose that, there's nothing you can do about it. You just have to keep going, right? Some of the most powerful, you know, some of those powerful God events I've seen with change in people has never been something where it's a direct, like, I'm going to talk to this guy and he's going to change right now, or I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to talk to this marriage. Like, it's never that I've seen, that I've experienced. I've never experienced where it's like, oh, Brad, because you told me you were stupid, that I was stupid and dumb for thinking these things, like, I've changed my ways. I've never seen that. And I have said those things. So if you're thinking that I'm not going to say that, I
Sorry to
100%
all the
have. Yeah.
counselors. Sorry to all.
Yeah. I'm not a counselor. Not a
We'll
counselor.
coach you to be better.
Yeah.
You're being stupid.
Yeah. Think about it. Like, just real quick, off topic a little bit, but a coach, right? Like, I've read, I read this little, I've seen the sign before, but if I can get it right now, but it's a sign. It was like on the side of a dugout or something like that. And it said, uncoachable kids become unlikable adults. And it goes on
Mm,
and on. But what that's really getting at is, like, let the coach, right? Because sometimes, I mean, I played football from junior high all the way through college. And there was times I got yelled at. It was never from hate. It was
mm-hmm.
because I did something stupid,
And
right?
they're trying to
Or
help you to be
they're
better.
trying to make me be better, right? And so all my coaches, I had better coaches than other coaches, but all the coaches came from a point of, I don't know if they'd ever say this, but they came from a point of love, right? And to help you get better, right? And in turn, that helps you play better and all those things. So yeah, if I call you out, there's nobody I hate, but if I call you out, then that's what I'm doing. It's like, if I don't do those things, then I don't really care, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it,
Right,
right?
right. You care enough to say,
Yeah. And I know
hey,
that's a
that's
little
not
off
right.
topic, but anyway, what I'm getting at is that I've seen those true God moments in people's lives because of prayer,
Yeah.
right? You take my testimony, there was people yelling God in my face, literally, at some point, right? They didn't know me, those people, but literally at some point, I didn't change. Nothing to this day, and I will always say it. The only thing that made me change was prayer, because I think that's what happened. Like, people were calling, right? They were praying for this event to happen in for God to meet me somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
They were praying for this, and He did.
Yeah.
And I've talked about it plenty of times. There's people I'll probably never meet that prayed specifically for Brad Valencia to have this God moment, right? And so that's where true change happens, because change happened on the side of that road. Now, it took me a while to detox.
Yeah. Transformation took
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
long time.
But that was done solely from prayer.
Right.
It wasn't from, some guy, yelling at me, or if I do these things enough for you, you can do these things for me. It was nothing like that. It was just literally like people I'll never meet praying for me. And He answered,
Yeah.
And so that's where, yeah, we want you guys to ask these questions, and we want you guys to lay down your pride, and we want true sacrifice in your marriage, because then you'll see amazing change.
Yeah.
Then this doesn't exclude bad behavior or spouses that aren't willing to change.
Right.
But that's not what it's about. It's about, like, God's literally working in your life when you're doing this. I was just thinking about this for some other instance, right? Parenting. I was thinking about this with parenting, and last night, you know, got a little, I don't know, what do you say, a little heated?
Yeah.
Little heated, nothing major, but a little heated, high emotions with our oldest. And and high emotions, high care, high love, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And, it got a little bit heated last night. We're so much alike. Ugh. And
Mm-hmm.
anyway, before, like, we love each other, it's
Mm-hmm.
okay because we're real. After that, in between that, I was thinking, like, the whole, like, well, what would Jesus do? In that same situation,
Yeah.
what would he have done? And it wasn't that I was necessarily saying that I said things wrong or that I was wrong or that she was wrong or said things wrong, but it was like, what could I have done better? Would the outcome have been the same? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But I immediately, like, what could I have done better? And it hit me, just, I don't know if I was wrong. I just know I could have done better, and so what could I have done better?
You could
What,
add that to the question list.
yeah, what could I have changed, right? What could I have changed in that instance? So how could have I responded? Like, all those things were coming up on my mind because all the questions that we want you guys to talk to each other about and those things, it's God changing you.
Yeah.
It's God refining you. It's God showing you you're, yes, you want a better marriage, but that's a byproduct of I'm sacrificing for my walk with Christ. I'm sacrificing for my family, sacrificing for my spouse, for my kids. I mean, kids is a great example of this
Mm-hmm.
because you sacrifice so much. And I mean, not in a bad way, but what do you get back?
Right, right,
You know
right.
what I mean? Not like I don't expect my kids to give me anything. That's right. That's how this should be. Like, I
Yeah.
don't expect I can do anything for them. I
We're
don't,
not keeping a toll of all the expenses that
no,
we've invested in our children and saying that, okay, well, you've done all of these things and we've invested in your life in all of these areas and we've been keeping a toll. So when we are 70 years old,
hmm
we expect a payback,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Uh,
I don't expect anything from them.
yeah.
I mean, of course, I want them to love me. I
Yeah.
want them to want to hang out with me. I want them to
Yeah.
do
You
these
want
things for me.
relationship.
But if not, I'm still going to do those things for them
Yeah.
because I know that they need it
Mm-hmm.
and I love them,
Right.
And so move that over to your relationship with your wife or your husband. Like, I love it, absolutely love it when you do things for me.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I love it when you love on me. I love all those things, but I'm not saying that I deserve them.
Mm.
I'm not sitting there going like, I've done the dishes all week. Like, I come home and it's like, where was everyone at all day?
Mm.
I don't sit there and go, well, I expect something back from this.
Right.
It doesn't, and probably because a lot of experience we have and where we're at in our marriage and what we've gone through and all those things for sure take, like help us focus on
The right
the
perspective.
right perspective. But I'm not sitting there like trying to figure out, well, what is she going to do for me?
Yeah.
So if I go do this thing right now, what is she going to do for me?
Or is she going to notice? Or am I going to get this because of, the fact that
Yeah.
I,
And let's be honest, like for dudes, it's sex. Like, I'm just going to throw that out there right now.
for most dudes, yes, yes. I always had to do the caveat, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
For the weirdo that says like, nope, it's not.
Brad.
Listen, look,
Okay, there's a lot of things that
it's not
happen.
always,
Yes.
all right. But I guarantee you, if there's a dude out there that's been doing all these things, you shouldn't be thinking like, oh, it's a comedic thing,
Yeah.
right? Like, you hear these jokes all the time, like, well, I mean, you see those reels all the
Mm.
time where it's like how my husband turns me on,
Yeah.
and it shows him like
Sweeping the
vacuuming,
floor and yeah, yeah,
doing the
yeah.
dishes and all that, and like, it's funny, it's true to an extent, right? You've
100%.
said it.
Yeah. Because it's like when someone sees you,
Yeah.
it's romance in this,
Yeah,
in
but
a way.
it's funny, but at the same time, it's like you shouldn't be doing those things because it's like, hey,
Home run.
yeah, and I think my main point with those 3 questions is it's just about you laying your pride down
Yeah.
and not expecting anything in return.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a big thing. And the other thing, when we went through the group, and you'll have to pull the questions up because I have a horrible short-term or whatever recall memory. But if during the group that night, someone's like, we asked these questions and it kind of went around, and it's like, these are hard to answer. Right. So like if I asked you these 3 questions, like it's
Yeah, so like during the headlights kind of
and we did that.
situation.
Right. And it was like, I didn't have prepared answers or anything. I was just like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure at all. And then one of the ladies was like, oh, well, it's this simple. And she was like, she just made it so simple where she's like, everyone's thinking right now of these like super deep,
Yeah.
answers, right?
Right.
I can't think of how can I be a better husband?
Yeah, how can I be a better
Right.
husband?
And they're thinking of these like monster deep answers
Yeah.
where, you need to
Emotionally connect with me on
I
a
need
daily
you to
level.
be, more emotional,
Right.
and I need you to do this and that, where it's like, literally, how can I be a better husband? Well, you know what? Like tomorrow when you come home, I'm going to be super busy. So can you, do X?
When you trim your beard,
Yeah. Could you
maybe
clean up the
clean
sink?
up the sink. Like that would
Yeah.
help.
That was a straight attack. That was a straight attack. That was a straight attack. It's my sink. We don't share a sink. Sometimes there's hair in there. We don't share a sink. It's fine.
If you find hair in the shower, what do you do with it?
Oh, it's like a little it's like it's alive in there.
What do you do with it?
Huh?
What do you do
I
with
move
hair
it
in the
to the
shower?
side.
You move it? What do you do?
Well,
You
I don't
throw
know.
it. You throw it against the side of the shower for someone else to get.
It takes so much in me to pick that up.
Okay.
All right, and the only reason I pick it up is because it's over the drain. It takes so much in me to get that. Like, it grosses me out. I know it's your hair. And it's clean, right? It's like been shampooed. There's water, soap, and all that. I know. I understand all that. It still grosses me out. Like, I do not
That was
like
a straight attack.
I don't like straight like clumps of hair. I don't. It's gross. It's gross to me.
That one's not even evident. I walk into the bathroom just like, just a sink full of beard hair. That's funsies. Just saying.
But it was. I loved that she said that because it's like, this is so true. What was it? One of the other questions?
Yeah. What can I do to help you? How can I make your life easier? How can I be a better
Yeah.
husband or
What
wife?
can I do to help you? And she's like, I just finished this. Could you do the dishes while I do this?
Yeah. Like, I really don't want to walk the dogs.
Yeah.
That was
That was, yeah. I really don't want to walk the dogs. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Cool. I can
got
totally
it.
do that.
Yeah. And that, like, as simple as that is.
And it's pride on both sides of this question,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Because, and we even discussed that a little bit, right? What happens is even when you're like, let's say you came up to me and how can I make your life easier?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm just like, no, I got it.
Oh, yeah.
I've got all the things, right? Well, quote unquote, yeah, well, there's a lot of things that we can do on our own, but can we invite our spouse into the process? Right? A lot of times we also see that where it's like a spouse feels just like, shoot, I'm trying to step in. I'm trying to help. I'm trying to be a part, but I'm just like, it's either not good enough, right? Even when I do step in, I'm being criticized for everything I do. And or like someone else is just like, I'm doing all these things. I don't need you.
Yeah.
And that also is like,
They're
is
both,
pride on both sides.
Yeah. One's a very critical side, and the other side, I would say, is there's probably some hurt there, and there's a need for independence. Yeah. Even if you're married, right? And so
to a toxic level.
Yeah, because you should have independence,
right.
Of course. I think probably the majority of it falls on critical. I would say, where it's like, no, I got this, because they might not finish that sentence, but it's like, because my way is the only way to do this. And if you do it, it's going to be wrong. Yeah. And then I'm just going to have to do it again. So just don't help me. We always use the dishwasher thing, like the right way. This is the way you load the dishwasher. Yeah. There is a right, you know, this
This
is
is
the
the
right
way you
way.
clean the kitchen. This is the
Yeah.
way you help clean the bathroom. This is the way you mop the
Yeah.
floor. Right?
I
Like,
would say there is a way to unload the dishwasher that I think is better than any other way.
oh, good. And from now on, you can unload it.
You start from the bottom. Yeah. I do unload the
I know
dishwasher,
you do. I know you
but you start from the bottom
I know what
and
your
work your way
mindset
up.
is on this
Why is that?
because there's no water then that drips on the
That's right.
dishes below.
Yep.
Like I
You already
already
know.
knew.
You already know.
I'm still gonna
See?
unload from top to bottom.
I'm just going to do it. Stop.
But these
No.
are little things that they sound little, but they can really be dividing in a marriage. Like little things over time create this division,
Yeah.
and then pretty soon that narrative that's in your head is just like, "Psh, no, I don't need your help.
Yeah.
No, oh, now you want to help me,
Oh,
or
that.
oh, just and you have like, I mean, we've casually mentioned it a lot of times, even when it comes to this aspect of raising kids, is that you don't have this ongoing, you know, list of all the
Yeah.
expenditures that you've invested in them over their life. But this is what's happening in relationships and marriage all the time, is the list that you keep of all the things that you've done, all the things and areas where they have lacked. And if you feel you come out on top, like you keep that list going really good, and that negativity of what you're thinking
Yeah.
about your spouse and what they've done and whatever else, that's the other narrative that's like constantly there.
And we've been there because I was just thinking, like, at first I was going to say you weren't good at that for a while, but I think it was I would bring up because
Oh
I don't know if
yeah.
you remember this. This was like years ago,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like years ago.
Yeah.
And you would get mad at me about something. I don't even know what. I really cannot.
What's always
Like
funny
what?
is that usually like even in our
Yeah.
discussions, it's not even like in anger.
Mm-mm.
It like I would bring something up
Oh
to
yeah.
you that would be
Yeah.
frustrating.
Oh yeah. No, it wasn't like you were
Yeah.
screaming and yelling at me or
Yeah.
anything like that. And then I would, in my head, as she's saying it, I'm like, you literally
You would
do
say
the
it out
same
loud.
thing. Oh no.
Yeah.
Then I would say it out loud. But
Yeah.
I'm thinking the whole time she's talking to me, I'm like, you last week you literally did the same thing and
Yeah.
now I'm doing it and it annoys you.
Yeah.
You know, and so yeah, I would say that. And then it was like, that was it. Like
Yeah.
you don't say that, you know, and then that would be the argument then. It was
Yeah.
like, you don't bring up the past, you don't do this, you know, and it's like, oh man.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that because we get that a lot and we're not like that anymore, but we have done that before.
Yeah.
And it's very easy because you're hearing someone tell you something and you're thinking to yourself, you're like, "Hey, last month you did the same exact thing. I didn't say a word to you."
Well, and two things
know?
happen there. One, if it bothers you, then that needs to be something brought up before you're in something where someone else brings it up, right?
Yes.
Where it's like you can't say, "Oh, man, we like I don't think we should be on our phones as much."
Mhm.
Like I noticed that like this has been a,
Yeah.
predominant issue. And it's like my issue, like that's what I see you doing all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Well, if it's something that bothers you, you need to bring that up so that it's not just
How
happening
do
in that.
I know this, I'm just not getting off topic.
Okay.
It's a little bit on topic, but how do I subtly ask you to put your phone down?
Okay, well, let me finish my thing
Oh,
really
sorry.
quick.
Okay.
So the other part of it is like when you would tell me, like when we were in that discussion
Mhm.
and I bring up to you, like what you don't realize or didn't realize at the time was it actually takes a lot for me to bring something up. Like it takes a lot. Like I am one who like kind of like wrestles through whether or not it's something I should say, how to say, because I'm in general a peacemaker. So I don't like
Okay.
conflict typically. So when I do bring it up, I'm kind of like I've been kind of wrestling with it. Should I bring it up? So when I did, and then I was just like, it was just like, well, I mean, you do this the same thing. Then it just would shut me down. So then I didn't want to have conversation. Like I
Mhm.
wouldn't want to bring it up. So then it would be even longer before I would like feel the ability to bring up
Mm.
something because it was like, well, if I do it this way, then like if God forbid I've ever done anything like that too, and it's a problem, and then we're just going to be right back in that same cycle. So yeah, that's a total side note off of our topic today, which happens in our podcast a lot. But
Yeah.
as far as telling me the phone stuff, I think always the best approach, even for both of us, is to be like, hey, let's both like put our phones aside
Yeah.
for a little while
Well,
because it puts us both in the
yeah,
place.
absolutely. But I was getting at like the actual, do you know that I subtly do that to you?
Oh, to put the phones down?
Do you know that I,
I think both of us do that to each other.
so no, you don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean, I guess not. I mean,
So,
I definitely like this is something in my own head. Like I'm so it's like a conviction for me in the fact that I
yeah.
do not want my phone to be an appendage.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was just getting at like we're going deep. I was literally just like, I'm sure you know whenever I'm like, put your phone down, you know? Because I don't say that.
Mm.
Of course not. Like, but I feel like I may have subtly been able to do that, but I guess not.
I don't know
So
because you
it's
have to give
literally
me an example.
yeah, well, that's the only time I've ever done this
Oh.
is we'll be like ending the day,
Mm.
right? And we're on the couch and you like to have your hair rubbed and we just watch a show, right?
Mm-hmm.
VidAngel, shameless plug, unshameless plug, whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
VidAngel, everything. But we just like to watch a show. So you'll set up the show, then we're watching it, and then like I'll look down and you're like texting someone or like, but not just like reply, you know, it's like this ongoing thing. And
Yeah.
I'll be like, what's going on? And you're like, oh, nothing, you know, just whatever. I mean, you're not like secretively doing
Yeah.
anything. That's not what I'm getting at. But that's like,
Oh yeah, I totally know when you're doing that.
well, clearly not.
It's no, I do know. That's why I needed an example. Well, because typically that is kind of like a no phone zone for
Yeah.
us. And so we try to keep it that way
Yep.
as much as possible. So it typically, if I am having a conversation at that point, it
Yeah.
is something that's like relevant that I need to be able to navigate through. Typically it's with one of our kids,
Yeah.
but honestly, but
But
I
no,
think that it is always one of those things that these are areas, even when you're asking these questions, how can I help you? How can I make your life better? How can I be a better husband or wife? Then this has to be where you're willing to be, when you ask those questions, there
oh, yeah.
has to be the humbleness
Yep.
to respond in a way that does not go to defensiveness.
Yep.
Like if you're going to just be like, listen to this episode and you hear Brad and you hear myself and you're just like, okay, we have the ability to change our marriage. And like, there's these 3 questions
Yeah.
and like, I should just be able to go ask these and it's going to transform our marriage. You can ask all the questions you want. If you do nothing about it,
Well,
like it's not going to
not
change
only
anything.
that, if you
Get
get
angry
defensive
and
at the
defensive.
answer,
Yes. So if your wife says, if a husband comes up like, how can I make your life better? It would help me so much if you would put your phone down more.
yep.
Like, okay, then you better be willing to actually follow through with it and not say, well, I think it'd be better if you put your phone down too.
Yeah.
Like these
Well,
are
then
things that are
also
not going to
like,
be
and
helpful.
yeah, and there has to be explanations behind whatever the answer is, because if you don't know what to do, like you need
Yeah,
to
you
put your
could say,
phone
what
down.
does that
Like,
look
okay,
like
yeah,
for you?
exactly. But
Like ask inquiring questions so that you don't set either one of yourselves up for failure, right? With unmet expectations. But definitely if your spouse comes and asks these questions or you go and ask them, you need to be able to give the right heart response to
well,
whatever that is.
if you're asking the question, you should be able to take the response.
Yeah.
Like, period. Right? I mean, it's like you've told the kids as they were growing up, you know, about like specifically about
Sex.
sex
Yeah.
ed. It was like, if you ask a question, I'm gonna answer it. So,
Do
you
you
know,
want to know?
do you want to know? You
Yeah.
know, and that's kind of where this comes from. It's like these 3 questions. Do you want to know the answer?
Yeah.
And I would say you have to wrestle that out prior to asking these questions,
Yes,
but
you
you
do.
have to wrestle that out, period. Because if you're saying, well, I want this marriage like this, like I want this dream marriage or whatever it is, right? I want it to be better than it is now. We're hitting road bumps, whatever, right? I want it to be better. Do you really want it to be better? Because if you're
Question
not
to ask
willing,
yourself.
yeah, because if you're not, and that goes back to, are you willing to sacrifice? Are you really
Yeah.
willing to do that? Because you can talk all you want, but as soon as it gets down to you ask those questions, you get responses that you weren't expecting. What's your action after that?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be like, you're right, I'm going to do that, I'm going to be better at that? Or are you going to get defensive and be like, you don't do this, you don't do that, you don't do that? Then why even ask the question?
Yeah. And then at that point, if you respond that way, the next time you ask that question, if you do get to the right
Yeah.
heart posture, you're not going to get
No.
genuine responses. And instead, you're going to set yourself up for failure. Like you have to go in with the right perspective of that humbleness, right? Like you mentioned that pride side of it, the pride of just being like, like I'm doing all this right, or the pride of
Mhm.
like I have to defend myself, or the pride of like, the list that you have in your head. All
Yeah.
of that stuff has to be laid down so that when you approach this is just about saying like this is not about what you see but what your spouse perceives. And I think that's the distinction is like if your spouse perceives that you're doing these things and it's hindering your relationship, or if your wife or your husband perceives like this would be helpful,
Mhm.
then you need to step into that. Even if it doesn't make sense to you, even if you
Yeah.
don't have full understanding, like just take the step. And we'll always go back to if you want to see genuine transformation in your marriage, two people willing to do the work in your individual pursuit of Christ. But ultimately, you can only own half of that picture.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
your individual pursuit with Christ and your own transformation process, those are the things that you yourself are responsible for. I would say that that's going to be our challenge for the week, right? Like, what is your part of that process, and are you doing it?
But I
And
think
the
that
three
I was gonna
questions.
say
Yeah.
the
You'll
whole
you'll give
thing's
me the
like
quizzical look, like,
yeah.
wifey, like we've gone over this whole thing. Yes,
Yeah.
I will put the three questions in the show notes and the description so that
Yeah.
you can look back over them. Um, we would encourage you have this become a part of the routine in your home, as you guys are walking out towards what you both ultimately really want, which is a strong, healthy, whole marriage, right?
Yeah.
And so have the right heart posture, ask the questions. All right. We'll see you next week.